the end of 10 years, 50 years, the land will actually be more fertile and more productive.
Absolutely, and we're concerned about, for example, the pH of the soil, where fertilizer use can make it a lot more acidic and things like that. And, you know, we don't have all the answers yet by any means, and it's like concerns like that that make us think harder.
This is high on your list of things
Yeah.
that need to be attended to.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, that's great.
Go back to the home base. Where are you up right now in Kenya, and what immediately challenges face you?
I think the biggest challenge that we're facing now is we have something that it's a fantastic product for one poor person. If you're a farmer and you have no access to fertilizer, seed, you don't know how to use it, there's no crop markets available to you, it solves all of your problems. All you have to do is work hard, and you can boost your own income. What we're trying to do now is make it into like a McDonald's, like a system, basically.
Right.
And it involves working through more layers of staff. You know, like we've got a field officer, a field manager, a field director. You know, like there's many layers above them, and turning it into some kind of a standard system.
It's called micro-franchising.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that term, micro-franchising.
Yeah, like micro-franchising, basically. Like, you need both an operational bundle that's like, ideally you hand somebody a binder and they can understand exactly what they need to do, and each person's role is described. And you combine that with a great HR funnel, basically. Great training, great people development, and mentorship and things like that. And we're trying to put together those two systems at the same time, and it's working well so far, but it's certainly not easy at all.
I keep jumping around on purpose. The HR function, talk to me about this reservoir of interns that's every time I go there, they keep turning up and working like crazy.
Yeah.
Who are they? Where you get them? What motivates them?
Yeah, we have two like twin HR functions. One is on the American side, which we're using to set up systems, and then one is on the country staff side,
Okay.
which is to execute the programs. And on the American side, there's just a lot of interest among really talented people that they want to give back and they want to learn about Africa. So we've got at any given time, we'll be next year having about 8 full-time Americans that are willing to work for $10,000 a year, but are also very accomplished professionals, you know, former investment bankers.
Oh, really? I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it's just great graduates of great programs and things like that, and it's a great team to work with.
And is it an online mechanism that gets you guys together?
Yeah, sometimes it's like idealist.org, which is, you know, like a job resources for people looking for nonprofit jobs, but most often it's networking in business communities, because that's the kind of people we're looking for. So we have...
How about the Peace Corps Network?
Yeah, that's right.
Peace Corps Hotline, for example, it's that email network for returned Peace Corps volunteers. We've gotten some great talent, for example, our Rwanda country director. It's a fantastic network for that kind of person.
And when I was down there, you had a bunch of MBAs who were doing great stuff. Where were they coming from?
The MBAs are, we had MBAs from most of the major programs.
I noticed, yeah.
And the program's been very supportive. All the major programs have ways of supporting financially MBAs to come for the summer. We've had people from Yale and Stanford and Kellogg, HEC. Not Harvard yet, though.
Yeah.
What?
No.
Those money grubbers.
Yeah. Now
That's a scandal.
These are schools that are actually supporting, to some extent, the students' living expenses when they're down there?
Absolutely. And, you know, that's how I became interested myself in Africa.
Yeah.
Through
Right.
the Kellogg's support of my summer internship in South Africa when I was working with AIDS patients. And it's amazing. You know, my interest is actually relatively young.
Okay.
And these programs play a really important role in getting really talented people to get interested in Africa. One of our former interns from last summer is starting his own NGO in 3 African countries.
Wow.
The other 2 are career interested now permanently in development economics and things like that, and it's a great way for people to get their feet wet, because it's obviously a very big career shift.
Wasn't there a woman also from the London Business School or from Brazil?
HEC in
Yeah,
France.
yeah. So it's that widespread.
Yep, we have, there's a lot of
Say
European.
it again, sorry, which one in France?
HEC. And we have actually a Spanish guy working there too. There's obviously a lot of European links to Africa. So.
And tell me this, and don't, I know the answer, but I want you to talk about it without being humble. How the heck do these people get organized? It seems to me if they just come down for a couple of months, they can wander around and do nothing. But indeed, they seem to be very organized. How do you do that?
Our special projects team, all the Americans and things like that are on the ground. We run it kind of like a consulting firm where we give people very distinct projects that they work on.
Do you need sugar?
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you need sugar?
Yeah. We run our special projects team like a consulting firm.
Yeah.
So for example, we have somebody who has ownership over our financial systems.
Right.
And so he's the person developing our payroll database and budget versus actual system and things like that. And so we just give people spheres of ownership over kinds of projects and then give them a lot of latitude to run with it, basically.
But I noticed, what are they doing at night? They all come back and they're sitting at their computers.
Yeah, we're all working really hard, just because it's a privilege to work on something like this. You know, there's not many opportunities in life to work on something where you can feel like it has potential to change a lot of people's lives, you know, and we all just feel like an enormous sense of privilege and responsibility. You know, poor people work very, very hard, and it's, you know, no matter how hard we work, we'd never have lives as difficult as theirs, and so people on the ground, we work very hard to accomplish our goals.
How long do they volunteer for?
Mostly now we're doing about at least a year volunteer service, and
these include MBA students?
yeah.
So are they taking a break between first year and second year?
There's some people, for example, we're talking to a guy now who's just graduating, and he's got an offer from a consulting firm, BCG, and he's...
Imagine the opportunity lost out here.
Yeah, and he's arranged it with them to take a year off before he starts his position. People like that are a little harder to keep for very long periods of time, but yeah.
Help me understand, because the reason they're all recording stuff is as you gear up for grants and all, you seem to have all these metrics that you keep track of.
Yes.
And they seem to take that very seriously.
Yeah, as an organization, we take monitoring evaluation very seriously. I think, you know, we were talking about this earlier in that poor people have to take whatever you give them, and because they're in a very desperate situation, and it's hard to know if what you're actually providing them is useful to them, because they're just like, great, thank you for helping me. You know, they're always so happy and satisfied. And if we're going to accomplish not just reaching a lot of people, but also actually creating real human impact for them, we have to measure what we're doing. Otherwise, we're never going to achieve that goal. So we're setting up a lot of systems right now to make sure that we can accurately record what is the average increase in farm income that we're generating for these families. Another of our targets is to have the child death rate among the families that we have, which we're well on track to accomplish, but we need to be able to measure that very rigorously. You'd asked the question of that program in China, is it working? You know, like a lot of organizations don't ask that question, unfortunately, and if we're going to really be true to accomplishing that mission of real human impact, we need to measure it consistently and make sure it happens.
Education levels?
Yep, education, accomplishment, school attendance, health. We have a survey that covers all of those things.
Your survey is actually tracking the height and weight of the kids now?
We didn't do weight because it's just operationally difficult to pull off.
Okay.
But height is actually a better long-term measure
Right.
of nutrition. And so we do the height for age measure of children. Also.
Move to, we're doing just fine. Move to a whole new project where'd the idea come from? Why is it tried? How is it working? And what it was involved in what I call the whole passion fruit adventure.
Uh-huh.
Started from scratch. Why did you even get that idea, and what was it supposed to accomplish, and how's it going?
So, for example, one of our crops that we support is passion fruit, which is a high-value crop. On 1/10 of an acre, it can generate as much as a whole acre of staple crop. And we're just basically looking for ways to generate more income for our families. We're not fixed on a particular program model. If we just do whatever it takes to increase income. And so we did a research process that showed that passion fruit was a good crop to grow as a business for poor people. And we put together, the trick is to put together all
Take that a little more slowly.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
that's
fascinating
key
thing, yeah.
insight.
Yeah.
Just take a little bit more step by step. How did you had the idea that if we moved to a higher value crop, obviously that would have a lot of benefits. So then what did you do? You were
Right.
looking, and how did you look, and what did you find, and was it really pretty simple, or
Yeah.
were there any bumps in the road?
Yeah, plenty of bumps in the road. So for our high value crop program, we looked at a screen of about 20 different potential crops that we could look at. Then we put them through some filters. One filter being extraordinary profitability for farmers. Two being there's got to be some comparative advantage for farmers. It's got to be very labor intensive, because otherwise, someone else in a developed nation is going to grow it and eventually compete them out of the business. There had to be good, well-developed markets, both internationally and locally, for the production, for the high-grade and the low-grade fruit. It had to be possible for us to pull it off logistically. And so we, narrowed this kind of funnel down and eventually came up with passion fruit, which is...
Who did you talk to?
Yes.
What kinds of people?
The people kind of people we talked to were horticultural experts, for example.
In Africa?
In
the
Africa.
United States, both?
Almost always in Africa, just because, as you know, they're the ones that know the local situation. For markets, we also mostly talk with local people, because they're the local traders, local exporters, and things like that, because they're the ones that know the data that we wanted. And we definitely did sort of just a regular business research project on talking to all the different stakeholders that would sort of help make this happen. And eventually, passion fruit turned out to be extraordinarily profitable. We had links in the market both locally and internationally. It was logistically possible for us to deliver the service to farmers.
Were there sites on the internet, for example, that were useful?
We also looked at the internet for some technical assistance, particularly around disease, pest and disease control. And I'm not sure, I wasn't personally involved in the project, but I know our guy looked at a lot of those things.
And passion fruit is an indigenous plant, correct?
Yeah,
It's already grown.
yeah, it's already grown in Kenya.
So how about the UN? Or organization, what is the new name for the African National Congress? It used to be the Organization for African Union, but transnational organizations, were there any that were helpful in finding, eventually getting to passion fruit, and maybe they're number
Absolutely.
number 2, number 3 crop, and so on?
Yeah, USAID, for example, has a couple great horticultural programs in Kenya that provide solely technical assistance on growing things. And so we rely quite heavily on, there's a project called the Kenya Horticultural Development Program that we rely very heavily on, and Kenya Business Development Services as well. Absolutely. Yeah, because, what do we know about growing passion fruit? Really nothing.
Well, exactly, and there are any number of examples of what was going to be the next big bumper crop, the jojoba. Was a big thing in the United States, where we're going to take deserts in the southwestern part of the country and grow this plant that had magical medicinal property, and it was a bubble like this.
And we've been subject to bubbles like that. Like there was a certain kind of a chili pepper we thought was going to be big and didn't pan out. And oyster mushroom production, we did a lot.
That's interesting too.
Yeah, we had a lot of failures.
Especially for cake.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Where it sounds now, I describe this methodology of filtering things down, and we didn't really have that at first. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. We just we chose some crops arbitrarily. Now we have a very rigorous methodology of how we choose what kind of products to roll out to our farmers, because we learned from mistakes. We made, we chose 3 high-value crops and only succeeded on 1 of them, actually. So
Still, that's pretty good. Yeah. Nice.
And
perhaps lucky even.
when you say
And
methodology, I just want to ask,
Yeah, go ahead.
in what form does this exist? Is it a series of PowerPoint slides? Is it an Excel spreadsheet? Is it, how is it formed?
The methodology for selecting a crop right now it's kind of systematized in a few documents, but largely resides in the head of our guy who's responsible for that right now.
Okay.
And as we scale, anything to make it scalable, we have to systematize it and make it some kind of a schedule and spreadsheet, things like that.
It sounds like the mistakes that you made gave you a clearer understanding of the parameters, the kinds of things that, well, when you mentioned, for example, that you can't choose a crop that wasn't labor intensive because it could be quickly latched onto by a more highly developed nation, and they could run circles around you, presumably,
Absolutely.
the bulk and what they would bring
Oh,
to
yeah,
market and so on.
absolutely.
But is that true? Did your mistakes teach you other things like that
Uh-huh.
that helped you more quickly identify what value-added crop number 2 might be, or number 3 in the future?
Absolutely. Like, one mistake, for example, was chili peppers have no local market, really. It's all for export and processing and things like that. And at low production volumes, exporters are really not interested in talking to you. And you need to have a stage where you have low production volumes, where you're learning how to do everything. And so that's why we figured out that if we're going to grow a crop, we need something that has both a local market and an international market. International markets are also very susceptible to, this year, Brazil has a good year, or this year Thailand has a good year, and they just shut down Kenya, or there's some kind of sanitary violation and Kenya is shut out of the market. So having a backup local market, we learned, is very, very important. Actually, passion fruit had a couple weeks where there was a shutdown of the entire Kenya export market, and we learned from that experience that we better have somewhere else to sell this stuff, otherwise we're going to have a lot of passion fruit.
Why was it shut down for 2 weeks?
There's a phytosanitary violation. There's too much chemical on the fruit going to Europe.
Just in general?
They found one batch that had that problem, and they shut down all of Kenya for 2 weeks.
So, did you get to the point of saying none of these are good enough, or you ended up saying of all of them, clearly passion fruit's the best and it's good enough, let's go?
We're at the point now where we have sort of 2 programs. One is a staple program and one is a high value crop program. And the kind of customer adoption is an important issue. Like poor people don't want to try new things right off the bat, with very good reason. They don't want the risk, basically. So we use the staple program. They want to grow more food staples like maize and potatoes and things like that. So we use that as an inroad,
Right.
and that's how we achieve kind of our first relationship with the customer. And then over time, we roll out some of these higher value crops to them.
And how do you, I understand if you focus on staple crops, then if nothing else, you have something to eat, right? Where if you turn their focus to passion fruit, if something happens to that crop, you don't really have anything to eat. So how do you, I'm fascinated by, does a farmer work on both? Or, do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's,
Even if we do passion fruit, actually, it's on a very small portion of their land. And so the rest of their land, they're still doing their regular thing in terms of staple crops. And things like that.
Define small, it's 10% of an acre.
Yeah, on average 10% of an acre.
So I mean, it's just a small corner.
Right.
Okay. So hard to get them to do it initially?
Yeah, they would prefer to have some kind of existing relationship with us before they begin
Okay.
some kind of higher value crop.
Called trust.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what happens? So you get some of them to trust you with 10% of their land.
Right, and then we can do all kinds of, actually we have a product research guy who's thinking of new ways to make money for poor people, basically. And so now that we have a relationship with this customer base, we can dream of rolling out other products to
Give
them.
it slow down, but tell me, because I know the story. What are some of the things that happened that you didn't anticipate with passion fruit?
With passion fruit, for example, there's a lot of disease problems we didn't know about, and so we had crop failure for our first 15 farmers, and so we went back and adjusted all of our horticultural guidelines in terms of the curriculum and how this stuff is planted.
Right.
We increased we have daily recording now of when people are pruning their fields, which is important for controlling disease. We emphasize certain things with our staff. And now we're having some very nice success with the passion fruit program.
Slow down. In the beginning was the disease problem such that it looked like you might as well quit. You're,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the first 15 farmers, I mean, now we have like 500 farmers
Yeah.
enrolled in the program, but the first 15 farmers, their entire plots were just taken over by disease.
so how could you induce them to try again?
It's interesting, some of them didn't try again, but most of them did, and I think even if a farmer had a total failure, they had maybe they tasted 4 weeks of a ridiculous amount of income,
Yeah.
you know, like more money. We had trouble convincing some farmers that they had actually earned that much money for themselves. And they just tasted that success, and then they had a problem, but then they were very willing to try again.
What were they
What's the
doing?
problem? Is it like a lottery winner?
No, the problem in this case was there was a fungal infection that affected our fields, and it's caused by simply not pruning, letting the vines hang too low to the ground, and they get splashback. And so we just increased our training on pruning. We created like a convention, which is make sure that your plant doesn't go below the knee high, basically, to the ground and things like that. We came up with we handed out scissors, which is, you know, a surprisingly simple thing to do, but makes a big difference in someone's ability to prune. You know, things like that, and it made a really big difference in terms of the outcomes.
Then I had
You're a
a-
learning organization, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
failed plenty, so
Building
there's
Yeah.
lots to
dependency.
learn.
But that, you're undaunted by that. You expect to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
Everybody
absolutely.
realizes that, and the thing is, keep learning, keep finding out if it's scissors and pruning at knee high, and then we'll move on.
Where do you hear this one?
Just like football.
That, Jesus, he was not going to let go. You're in trouble. What about the story of poles from start to finish? I thought that
Story of what?
poles, wooden poles.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually, providing the back end of this stuff is sometimes really complicated. For passion fruit, for example, the vines are trellised on 9-foot tall poles, and there's no like pole supplier that we're aware of in our area. So we started a small business that basically creates poles. They go out and they
Think
buy.
about that. If there's no pole supplier in the country, what do? Well, you start a business, right? I mean, I'm amazed at this.
You know, it's not a big one. I mean, we have 4 people working in it, and they go out and they
4 people with a chainsaw.
with chainsaws, yeah, and they find trees and that are appropriate, and they cut them, and we replace them. We're responsible foresters, but they generate poles for us basically, and it's a lot
What
of poles.
kind of wood? What kind of trees are you growing? The
Usually,
replacement trees especially.
usually we're cutting eucalyptus and replacing with eucalyptus, which is not the ideal tree from an environmental perspective to plant, but in an existing eucalyptus forest, it's about the only thing you can plant. So.
Is that right? Well,
Right.
that might be a question for further research.
Yeah.
Eucalyptus sucks up ground.
What do you?
Oh,
So
I know, and you see it all over Ethiopia. It was introduced as in so many other parts of the world from Australia.
Right.
And there are about 600 varieties. and
Yeah.
I'm
So
sure
how-
some varieties are better than others.
That's something we're really wrestling with. That's the one thing I'm kind of concerned about is what's a good replacement tree potentially. Unfortunately, when you plant a eucalyptus tree, there's really nothing else that you can put in place of it.
Really? So
Yeah.
it changes the soil somehow, or?
Yeah, and all the root structures are still there and things like that.
guess how many poles his division is producing now?
Yeah, it's like
You
about.
want me to guess?
No, I want you.
Okay. That was a rhetorical question.
You guys use that?
How many poles, Andrew? How many poles are you producing?
We produce about 60,000 poles a year, which is
With 4 guys?
yeah.
And a
they work
chainsaw.
very
At the
hard.
current rate? At the current rate of 60,000.
Eucalyptus trees are falling like magic.
No, that's amazing. Can you use that many?
Yeah, definitely. And for us to be truly scalable in the future, we need to do more things. That's a logistically difficult operation to scale. And then there's also the environmental concern about deforestation. So we're working on more and more products that we can hopefully generate the same income impact a lot easier to roll out. We're working on a drip system now a drip irrigation system that will cost $5. And it'll irrigate a 40 square meter piece of land, 1/100 of an acre. And we're working on other products like that we think will generate income for farmers that are more scalable.
Drip irrigation system look like that costs $5?
It's developed by this nonprofit organization called IDE India, International Development Enterprises, and they're the founder is on our advisory board. They've put together 2 million. They've distributed 2 million either drip systems or hand pump systems to farmers in the world, and we've got to modify it. It's never been used in Kenya before, but we have someone working on how to make that happen.
How did you meet that guy?
It's, you know, most of the people we know are somehow through Kellogg. Like, I don't remember exactly, but I imagine quite likely. In fact, Michael Krasny knows Paul Polak, who's the guy, yeah, there, now I remember. And so he's been a wonderful mentor along with several other very successful nonprofit leaders.
This whole world is a networked world, and Andrew is one of the great networkers of all time. I mean, every time you ask him something like that, there's this interesting story called his ability to network and know what's going on. Don't leave passion fruit. Now you had a problem with the seeds.
Uh-huh.
What was the problem? What did you do about that one?
Yeah, it's hard to find high quality seedlings and nurseries that you can trust. So we had to also build our own nursery.
Whoops, another business.
Right. And
You
it's
should
again,
see this.
It's again like not a big operation. There's like 5 people working there, and it's under the direction of one of our country staff, just like the forestry operation. And so that we're producing like 90,000 seedlings per year. in that nursery.
90,000 seedlings a year. I mean, it's just a row of greenhouses that, because they weren't available, he built them, or had to build. He's building 90,000 a year.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
It's enough to add. We're going to add about 1,000 farmers a year to our passion fruit program, and so it again is part of the strategy of use staple crop as a big inroad to get a large number of farmers into the network, and then to the best ones we roll out things like passion fruit and the drip system. We're working on other systems. Artificial insemination of cows, for example, is a way of upgrading.
That wasn't in the business plan.
No. Upgrading cows. But we're really focused on our core business, you know, like this basic program model, but it's not stopping us from also finding partners that provide other services that can make farmers rich. And so we're focused on the core business, but now that we have a customer base, we can think about allowing other partners to come in and sell their products to our customers.
So now the passion fruits are growing pretty well.
The passion fruits are growing pretty well. We're still at a very modest number of vines that are producing, but we're producing like more than we're producing a couple tons a week, and
Couple what?
A couple tons a week.
And then what happens?
Then we mostly sell it right now to traders. Some of it goes to the export market. Some of it goes for the local market.
Who's we? You got a marketing arm now?
Our logistics manager handles all the collection and selling and things like that.
You have your own truck?
We have our own truck
You
donated by somebody who's linked to Kellogg again.
When'd you get it? Finally got it?
About, I don't know, like maybe 5-6 months ago or something.
So the truck drives around the farms and loads up with passion fruit?
Basically, yeah. We have a collection day right now, and eventually it'll be like, we have a schedule, and farmers come and we grade it and weigh it and everything like that.
You gotta understand, these aren't highways, you know, that you, I mean, drive a truck around, there's even some. You really guys. And then
Okay, one question.
Yeah.
How much? Do you know exactly how many vines are producing passion fruit? You said.
Yeah,
Tell
how
me
many
about
vines
it.
are in production?
How many?
Roughly.
I mean,
We have about maybe 8,000 or 9,000 vines under production right now.
Okay. Producing 2 tons or 2+ tons per
week. Yep.
week.
Which sounds like a lot, but in a farming world is still pretty modest.
And who figures out who you're gonna sell them to, and how much you gonna charge, and how you're gonna get your money and all that jazz?
Our logistics manager also handles that.
That's one guy?
Right. The talent, interesting in your experiences too, like in Kenya and Rwanda, is very raw. I mean, there's not a lot of people that have had careers and things like that, but they're extremely motivated. They're very smart. They're really willing to work hard, and when you give them a career path, they're very interested in developing their skills and our logistics manager is one example of just a guy who's just fantastic. We gave him some basic computer skills for inventory prediction and things like that, and he's just done a really great job.
So he finds the customers importing and exporting. Yet you had no trouble selling off all your crop at a profit right now?
Hold on one moment before you answer. Switch the tape.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then I'll switch the batteries. Don't say anything important. Ask football questions.
No, I have to visit the restroom.
Oh,
There
boy.
is-
Stephanie will answer your football questions then.
Turn right. That's funny. I never knew you were interested in football. This would have had him here
From Minnesota,
before.
From Minneapolis, everyone's.
Oh,
No
Minneapolis.
way, really?
Are you from Minnesota?
My mom is.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm from St. Paul.
So how the heck do I get this?
So where did you say the restaurant?
If you go
Oh,
to
you-
the left and then around the loop.
Left, right, and keep going
Small
halfway
thing
down the
I
hall.
remember is Choki Gawapi.
Yeah.
Where's the bathroom?
Yeah.
Or else